Hello everyone, Forest Focus ahead of Nottingham Forest facing Aston Villa in the Premier League on Saturday in a clash of 5th versus 6th at the City Ground. Joining me today to discuss the game from the Villa point of view, delighted to have back on the show Steve Farmer. Steve, how you doing?
I'm good, Matt. Yeah, good, thank you. Just returned from a trip in the to Leipzig and all is good. So
You're a good man. It's good to we'll pick your brains on that. I don't know whether to do this camera off or camera on. People can see my eye is messed up. Anyone who was listening yesterday, I was saying it was sore, and I've been to eye A&E today. And I'm on antibiotics for a couple of weeks and hoping it sorts it out. But I think I'm going to turn my camera off and then I'll ask Steve the normal questions. He's a much better looking guy than me anyway. We already know that. So
not after 2 days in Leipzig, he's not.
Well, let Steve do the heavy lifting here anyway, in both senses. So I'll turn my camera off. There we go. Right. Good to have you with us back, mate, as ever. What have you made of this season so far for Villa? After having such a good season last season, has it lived up to all expectations? I guess with the Champions League versus Premier League presented some interesting situations, but you've had some real highlights from what I've seen so far.
We've had some fantastic highlights. Yeah, I mean, certainly within the Champions League, Bayern Munich, for example, and in the game, obviously at Leipzig the other day. I think for us, we've got to try and look at it. It's more of a marathon, not a sprint. For me, it's probably unfortunate that the Premier League seems to be, certainly at this stage, more competitive than what it's been in a number of years. And at one point, we go down to 12th, and then all of a sudden we have a really good week. 2 wins on the spin, and the picture kind of changes. I mean, from the get-go, I don't think it was a great summer in terms of the transfer window, because we had to do a lot of dealings to comply with everything that we spoke of last time we were on, in terms of financial fair play and stuff. Those that we signed went out, some of those went out on loan. We had a relatively good start. Nana came in and looked, the business, and scored a few goals, and then probably he dipped a little bit, and then the Champions League starts, and the games come thick and fast. We probably aren't as strong from a squad perspective than where we want to be, and I think January is going to be really important. Hence, it being a marathon and not a sprint. But we sit third in the Champions League. We're sitting well placed at the minute to a degree in the Premier League. So it ain't all that bad. I think our expectations have just risen. That's the issue.
Yeah. Oh, understandably so, I guess. I mean, the thing I suppose specific to this game I want to pick your brains on is coming out of Champions League games. You beat Wolves away, and they're obviously in horrible form, and then you've had a couple of defeats and a couple of draws. So how much of a factor is that going into this game, having played a tough game in Leipzig as well in the week?
Yeah. Look, they keep saying, don't they? Look at Newcastle. In previous seasons, it will take its toll. I think it is taking its toll to a degree. For us, as I said, the squad probably isn't quite where we want it to be in certain areas, certainly defensively. And we have a lot of squad. We never know what the starting 11's really ever going to be. In all honesty, we beat Brentford. Kind of thought, is he going to keep the team the same? Is he certainly going to keep the back four the same? And he didn't. Totally changed it for the win against Southampton. So he's clearly got a lot of trust and faith in the squad. But for us, game by game, we don't quite know what that starting 11 will be. There's kind of your consistent starters, and I think football's football. I think sometimes when you've got a winning team, it's nice to keep that team, but also at the same time, when you are playing in so many different competitions, it is hard. But for me, in football, consistency is key, and we've never really had that so far this season. And the longer we're going to be in this competition, hopefully, then I can't see that changing.
I watched a couple of games. I watched the Southampton one last week in advance of this, and I watched a couple, and I didn't think you were, Southampton are bad, so I didn't think you were that good. It looked like have your players just not weary, but they've lost that bit of zip that they had last season, especially the forwards, Watkins in particular, I guess. Is that fair or not?
Yeah, the conditions weren't great. No excuses. They probably didn't help. But at the same time, we seem to. Yeah, you're right. We seem to have lost that. We've gone back a little bit to that kind of laboured. We pass it around the back. We could go forwards. We don't. We come back. We go backwards. We go sideways again. And I think, in some respects, teams have probably found us out a little bit. Last time I was on here, we were talking about high lines. Don't think we defend now with an aggressive high line, and I don't think we press, overly well, whether that's down to tiredness or a slightly way of working. We probably did it a little bit more actually, Leeds the other night and got the just rewards. But I think when we've been beaten by some of the better, supposedly, potentially better sides, certainly those that have started the season well this season, is because they've matched us up and they've pressed, and we've kind of made mistakes, and we haven't really attacked with any great purpose. So that's been a concern. Like when we've been beaten, I think we've been well beat, and that's quite a worry for me, really.
So we're not, when you say that, we're not a massive pressing team. We're one that likes to let other teams have the ball. We thrive on teams that play a high line.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that and you're comfortable with teams having the ball, does this feel like a good matchup for you then, even though we're having a really good season?
I think Liverpool, for example, we got done on the counter. I don't think they scored. I think they scored maybe Woods from it, but from our own, from an attacking corner. So teams that are able to hit us on the counter. As I say, I think that one of the biggest issues for us this season is defensively. There's been balls over the top that we've not dealt with on a number of occasions. Ipswich being one away. That probably Carlos should have dealt with it. Torres maybe could have dealt with it. And haven't done. So for me, and I've got the utmost respect for Forest and certainly how they've started, probably does concern me actually, to tomorrow, because again, I know we beat you at our place, last season, but I think I also go back to when we played you last season at the City Ground, and and I think again, I was really impressed with how you played, in terms of pace and power and such. I just think at the moment there's too many games where we've got a silly goal, giving away a silly goal in us. That's my issue.
Yeah, because Palace scored off a corner against you as well, didn't they? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What's that about? Doing it twice in a season? Is the setup wrong to defensively for that? Or is it just a freak thing from what you've seen?
I think honestly, that's what I said to you. I think some of it comes down to the fact of the player movement, in the respect of like we haven't had that settled back four. We haven't had. I mean, when Onana is fit, I mean, what is he, 6'5"? So things like that. He has that presence. If we can get Mings back into the team now, hopefully he's coming back to fitness. Then all of a sudden we have a bit more of a dominant presence. Obviously Martinez is fantastic, but there's just, as I say, for me, it's been more about a bit of a warm knife through bottle. It literally is one ball over the top that at times we've not dealt with. But again, I go back to what I say that when we've been beaten by those that you were expecting to be in around the top four, top five, top six, we've been beaten well. And in times, I don't even think we've really laid a glove on them, if I'm honest. I mean, at Chelsea away, we went behind, I think, after something like 5-7 minutes. And you're sitting there thinking, we're not going to get back into this. And Liverpool the same. We're now thinking we're not going to get back into the game, and that's what's been a worry for me more so. That when we were a team that plays quickly, plays through the thirds, that type of thing. With the real intent, like we did at Brentford at home the other day, we look so much better. But that's just not probably happened enough, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the teams you've lost to, for people who are listening and watching, I think I've got this right: Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Spurs.
Yeah.
4 of the bigger clubs in the league. So has it been a case of the games you've won? In a few cases, you've got the job done. That bit of extra quality that you've got in the 11 has shone through more as much as anything.
We have a super sub.
We'll come on to him. Yeah, don't worry.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, no, don't. Yeah, no. There are, for me, honestly, Matt, there are so many different variables. There are, but I think and again, I said to you last time I was on last season, when we play with real purpose, when the Villa that we know they can be absolutely turns up, then we know that we're going to give anybody a good game, and I'd still say that we could be up and around that top four. Teams like Chelsea worry me, and even yourselves to a degree that hopefully will be challenging towards the end of the season. But we didn't have a great end to last season either. And we had, and then we didn't have the window we probably wanted to have, and then all of a sudden we had a relatively good start. We won away at West Ham, and then that's kind of dropped off. So there hasn't been that fast flowing Aston Villa that maybe we saw when they beat Arsenal last year and beat Man City on the spin. We probably haven't seen that as much. And I think some of that is down to, players not being in form, like Leon Bailey. Leon Bailey last year was, came back from injury. He was fantastic. This year, for me, he looks like he has needed a rest, but he's persevered with playing him. And I don't think he's overly done him any favours, if I'm honest, to a degree. But we seem to have a core that he will continue to play, and the rest will just fit around. But some of that core haven't been overly performing either. When you go into your Chelseas and your Tottenhams and the like, you need them to perform. And as I say, at times, unfortunately, they just haven't. But then saying that, when called upon, like you Bayern Munich, they do. So it's very much as and when.
I'll ask Steve about a few specific players next. I did ask him for a predicted 11, but he said it was pretty impossible because it just changes from game to game. So I'll ask him about specifics. But just before that, just a reminder, straight after the game on Saturday is former Reds forward Paul McGregor's band, The Upper Body, are playing his free entry, about a 7:30 start. It should be really good. If you haven't heard the interview with him, it's really interesting. Did it on Wednesday. So check that out and do get along to the NAV for that one. Right. Some of these players I want to ask you about then. Probably starting with the fullbacks because it feels like they're an interesting area, whether it's, Hudson-Odoi versus Konsa or Cash or, Digne or Maatsen. Starting with the right back, I mean, who do you think it would be and who would you want it to be ideally out of Cash and Konsa?
It's been more so Konsa, if I'm honest, who is steady, and he is. He's an England international. He's played right back for England. For me personally, you'd want him playing in the middle, but I think it seems to be more so on the right hand side. If his positional sense is very good, he's comfortable on the ball. So yeah, that would, we'd have no concerns there. I would say if Mings plays centre half, then I think Konsa will probably play right side centre half. That seems to be the pairing that, unfortunately, due to injury, hasn't played enough. Whereas, Matty Cash, as we've said before, on occasions can get exposed, and I feel that sometimes teams do, play upon him probably a little bit more. However, going forward, he played at one the other day and did all right out there. So, but I'd probably maybe say Konsa.
Yeah, we were saying on our preview yesterday that we'd rather it was probably Cash as a better matchup for Hudson-Odoi, having struggled against Tuanzebe when he played for Villa there. So yeah.
Konsa's not going to get you forward. He's not going to go the byline. Nothing like that. He's a defender. But he's a fantastic defender.
Yeah. What about the other side with Digne and Maatsen? I mean, we've got potentially Elanga, who's very quick, or Jota Silva, who's kind of quick over 5 yards and tricky and can win free kicks. Who do you think might start left back?
I think he'll go Digne. He seems to be, again, he's pretty much one of those players that has started, pretty much every game, I would say, unless he really, he is fatigued. Maatsen hasn't started anywhere near as much. Again, two total different players, like I'd said to you in the summer when we talked about Marino. However, when Maatsen has come on, again, short, sharp 5-yard passes, get you to the byline. Luka Dean isn't that player, but he's a steady Eddie, and he had a second coming and has done really, really well, in all fairness. But yeah, I would expect him to play tomorrow, in all fairness, for sure.
It looks like in the middle. I know you're missing Onana, and that looked like a bit of a hole, but you've got Kamara back. I mean, how much of a difference does he? Is he fully fit? And if so, how much of a difference does he make?
Yeah, I wouldn't say fully fit just yet. He does. Yeah, I mean, for sure, he gives you that. He's kind of a steady Eddie, really. He's fantastic on the ball. He reads the game ever so well. A lot of kind of, similar to the Louise mould, I suppose, mould from last year, really, which we probably might have missed him a little bit, at times. I would say that, Kamara, over anybody, once fully fit and match fit, would probably be the one that he's going to continue to, to play longer term. Onana, again, offers you, something different in terms of that presence. Tielemans has probably dropped a little bit, certainly, in terms of where he was at the start of the season, because he had a spell where he was doing really, really well. But Kamara for us will be, and certainly within Europe will be, and it is and will continue to be a big player for us.
The other one, there's a bit of a similarity here between the teams I want to ask you about. We've got, the two wingers that I've referenced who might interchange. Then we've got Gibbs White as a number 10. probably haven't scored as many goals as you would want. When I look at your players behind the striker, Rodgers, Bailey, you mentioned, and I guess McGinn, from what I saw, do they get the volume of goals and assists that you would want in a team chasing the top four or not?
Bailey, not so much, no. As I say, bless him, he's struggled this season so far. For me, Rodgers, well, listen, you start the season, he was doing incredibly well. He was, he got his England call up probably slightly later than he probably warranted it actually, and probably was just starting to come out of form a little bit. It's his first full season in the Premier League, and I think sometimes that we can forget that he gets rumored with England call-ups because of Carsley and things like that, but. I think again at times has probably been looked tired. His ball retention hasn't been great last few games. Better the other night, bless him. But again, it's about if they did need to come out, who have you got to come in? And I think some of it you could say, well, no, you've got to play Watkins with Duran, but we've tried it and it ain't really worked. But I like Rodgers, and I think he will be, again, through a signed a contract for many years, will be, a fantastic player. When he's running with that ball and he's on form, like he, as a ball carrier, potentially, in the coming years, I don't think there'll be many better in the Premier League. He's got a lot, really, in terms of presence and stature. I just think he needs, again, it's just. I don't know. Like again, sometimes he'd hit the ground running. All of a sudden, he's got to maybe sit out and and see how he goes. But I think all in all, he'd be relatively pleased with the start of the season that he's had. And say he's been in the England squad.
Oh, so you mentioned Duran and Watkins, and that's probably the really interesting one. I mean, it sounds strange given how good Watkins has been, but we were speculating yesterday whether we'd rather face Watkins or Duran. So you don't think they can play together? Which one do you want to play? I mean, it sounds crazy saying you'd leave Watkins out. Are you too far away from that or not, given how well Duran's doing? We've gone.
You there, Matt?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I dropped out. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry. I'll just ask the question again. No problem. So yeah, I'll do it again. Fine. Right, here we go. You referenced Duran just there a second ago. We were saying on our preview yesterday, and it sounds a bit mad, but would you rather face Watkins or Duran, given how well Watkins has done? But you see the goals Duran scores. Is it getting to the stage amongst Villa fans where there's a bit of a groundswell of, actually, we'd quite like Duran to start and Watkins to sit a few out, or not?
I think he's definitely he deserves the start. And again, it's one of those where surely as a footballer you would become frustrated with, saying what more do I need to do, and Watkins hasn't, again, another one. Sounds doom and gloom. It's not, but Watkins has been very much. Right from the very first game, for me, there's a little bit like his body language, and I don't know. After really a good summer within the England squad, he's not come back probably the player that we thought he was going to come back as, and now he's got a bit of competition where I don't think he's really had that before. So it might well be that Duran gets the chance that he absolutely warrants, and never looks back. But I mean, that Watkins can potentially, when he first came to Villa, can play out wide, on the left and cut in and get shots off and what have you, put balls in boxes. So there's definitely options. But what we've looked at so far in the few games that they've put him up together, whether he's come off the bench or started, it just doesn't seem to have clicked. For me, I'd say more so that Duran could be the one out of the two that works in behind. But actually, he's been the one that's come and dropped deeper, and I don't think he's been effective in those areas than probably what he could have been if he'd have played on the last man as such. Because I don't think there's any doubt, Matt, the kid can score goals.
Yeah, massively. You see the goals he scored. I mean, we've got a sort of a similar situation in a different way, I think, maybe at Forest with, Elanga's not having the best season. Jota Silva's really pushed him. Has Watkins sort of just been, has he been a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, but Duran's coming on and he's like an 8 or a 9 out of 10? Is that how it's probably played out? Has Watkins not been that bad then?
he's not been the standard that we probably saw last year. And I wouldn't say he's obviously scored a small number of goals, but in terms of his general contribution towards games, it's probably not been as great as what it was in previous season. His ball retention again hasn't been great. And honestly, and it's not just me. I think there's quite a few that can't quite put their finger on it. And one or two said, was something rumbling in the summer? Maybe was he, and it didn't quite come off. And I don't think that's maybe true, but it's certain things that people are asking. But like I say, I don't think he's had the pressure of. I think he looked like he's lacking in confidence, Watkins, for me a little bit. And then when you've got somebody breathing down your neck that you've never had before, as such, probably can affect you. But. Yeah, as I say, I think it's down to Duran now, isn't it? Because he can't do any more. Watkin needs to do a bit better. But I think, Unai's got a decision to make, and we'll see how that impacts on both. Because I think that they keep alluding to Duran as like this, and Watkins actually did the other day in an interview about like a Balotelli type. So I think, if he's not playing, I think you probably know about it, and I think at the moment, he kind of holds the cards a little bit, saying, "Well, what more do you want me to do?" And the kid, he can finish.
Oh yeah, he certainly can. He certainly can. Let's talk about Forest a little bit then.
Yeah.
You've seen a bit of them, I guess. What have you made of them? And are there any players that you've seen that would worry you, against any particular Villa weaknesses potentially?
I think, yeah. I mean, potentially depending on what back four we go with. I think Wood. Chris Wood, if I'm honest. I mean, again, clearly, obviously, because he's in great form, he's scoring goals. And as I say, us collectively, certain balls in boxes, balls in behind, not reacting to certain situations, has cost us at times. So, which is what I keep saying, in terms of, for me, if it's a Mings and a Konza tomorrow, I would feel a little bit more confident than going in with a Torres and a Carlos, because again, they're different types of players where. Torres is for me as a footballer. He's last year was certainly a bit of a Rolls Royce player, great balls into good areas, but defensively, that general sharpness in and around the 6-yard box at times has probably been, found wanting a little bit. And Carlos will have a good game, and then again, maybe a slight issue, a goal given away, and so for me, I think Wood for me is, who clearly he's a massive threat. But again, I think, if you were to, having watched us play, clearly, if you were to go and press, and if you were to go and ask questions, hide the pitch of us, when in possession, that's where we've struggled a little bit. And off the coming of the back of a European game on Wednesday, where we'll have taken a lot out of us, irrespective. Trying to overplay is not, for me, is not the way forward.
Interesting stuff. I mean, this was something we were discussing yesterday as well about, would we take a point now? And I think our consensus was no, but if we got one, we'd be happy. We kind of believe we can win the game, but a point's not a bad result. Is that how you would view it as well, coming to the City Ground?
I'll take a point. Yeah, for sure. I'll take a point if you can get. I was listening to the radio this morning on TalkSport. Troy Deeney was back in Villa to win, so and that never happens. But certainly with his connections. But for me, I'd take a point tomorrow. Listen, you've got to respect as I say, you've got to respect how well you've started, how well you're playing. We've lost to some big teams. You've beat some big teams. So, absolute credit to you guys. I think, again, it's about what turns up, in Claret and Blue tomorrow. And like I say, how it affected us, or how the game has affected us this week. But if we start slow, we struggle to get out of that, So God forbid if we conceded an early goal tomorrow. But then saying that, the longer we're in the game, I think we'll, potentially we then grow into it. Then we'll have a real chance. But I'd be happy with a point. And then we've got some good, we've got some tough games coming up over Christmas and New Year. But I think now we've found a little bit of form. We don't want to lose another game.
No, I did. When you were talking, I did see that Chelsea game. So it was on Sky, wasn't it? And you started so slowly. And when you've played in Europe and you're probably carrying a bit of, miles and stuff, then it's hard to get out of it, isn't it? So the start might just hide it.
Do you see what I'm saying? As I said, listen, this is, blimey, might sound negative. It's not. We are sitting in good positions, but ultimately, I just feel like we feel that we've gone back just a little bit in terms of how we play. Having that real, if we were front foot, if we were passing the ball at good tempo, playing through the thirds, then we're where we need to be. But I think if we go back a little bit to kind of Steven Gerrard syndrome, where all of a sudden Martinez gets it, he rolls it out, we get it back, we get it back again, and I watched it at Liverpool, we just get pressed. But all of a sudden, then we give the ball away early on, and all of a sudden it sets the tone for the game. Whereas I feel that we benefit by doing that to other teams. So you can say a bit of cat and mouse, but it's certainly a game we're looking forward to, very, very much so.
Excellent. Right. We shall leave it there. If you've enjoyed this, do us a favour and do hit like on the video, subscribe. You can become a channel member or sign up for Patreon, and do give us a lovely 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. We'll be back tomorrow evening after the game about 8:30. Probably camera off for me still. But we'll be joined by a couple of people for that. We'll review the match in full and then pick up things on Monday. Steve, thank you very much. Good to have you back on, and good luck for the game, mate. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks so much. You take care, man.
I'll try to. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good day. If we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon. Out of one eye.